everyone, and welcome to another Scots We Hate podcast. And it's the first of this year's collaborations with Bloody Scotland, because we're here to talk about the Bloody Scotland debut prize shortlist. And I'm delighted to be joined by all of this year's shortlisted authors, who are May Rinaldi with The Liar Thief. Hello, May.
Morning.
Zoë Rankin with The Vanishing Place. Hello, Zoe.
Kia ora from New Zealand.
Exactly, joining us all the way from New Zealand. Linda Duncan McLaughlin and Original Sins. I'm presuming you're closer, Linda.
I'm in yes, probably about 5 minutes away from you, Ali, in Kelvinbridge.
Frances Crawford, A Bad Place. Hello, Frances.
Hiya, from not so sunny Partick. It's got dead cloudy now all of a sudden.
And Kirsty Lockwood for We Know What You Did. Hello, Kirsty.
Good morning.
So first of all, I'm going to ask you all to give a brief summary of your novel. May, starting with yourself, tell us about Liar Thief.
This is a bit I can never do. Okay, Liar Thief is a psychological suspense novel, and it's the story of Ginny Queen, who insists she's a serial killer, although there's never been any evidence to prove that the crime she admits that she's committed have actually ever occurred. The story is from 3 points of view. One is her own story, which is what she relates to her ghostwriter, Fiona Taylor. Then there is Fiona's take on the whole thing, and that during the interviews when she's talking to May, no, not me, I'm May. When she's talking to Jenny, she is trying to get behind the woman, trying to find out, is she possible of committing these crimes? Is there something deeper? Is there more psychological issues with what she's saying? And the third point of view is from Ginny's childhood friend, Tom O'Brien, who is a retired police officer, a detective, in fact, who knows all the background to the crimes that Ginny says she has committed, and is well aware that the Procurator Fiscal always said there was no crime to be charged with. And the premise of the book is that the reader has to decide, is Ginny telling the truth? Is she a serial killer? Is she deluded? Are they in danger? Because she's just about to get out of prison for having shot Tom. It's a different thing. That's a separate thing. And are he and his family and Fiona in danger if this woman gets out of prison now?
Wow, what a brilliant premise. I'm going to ask inspirations later on, but I'm really interested to hear what inspired that. Zoe, can you give us a little breakdown of The Vanishing Place?
I can. So The Vanishing Place is set on the west coast of the South Island of New Zealand, which is very similar to the west coast of Scotland. The setting plays a huge part in this novel. So if you think rugged, bad weather, big mountains, big seas, and it's set in this tiny little village called Koraha, which has a population of about 90 people. It's extremely remote, and there's one tiny little shop. And one day, this child stumbles through the front doors of this shop. She seems to be about 8 years old. She's dirty. She's got blood on her. She crawls across to the milk stand and starts to gulp down milk. And what is strange about this girl, not about the fact that she looks like she's been living rural for a couple of weeks, is the fact that she looks identical to another child who disappeared 20 years earlier from the same tiny village. So this book is kind of exploring the stories of these two girls, sorry, the one who is currently in this tiny little shop, who's actually also mute, so she won't say anything. And this girl who disappeared 20 years earlier. But as a little nod to Scotland, one of the first scenes is actually set on the Isle of Skye.
Right.
And there's a woman who's very important in the novel that starts her story in Skye and comes over to New Zealand.
There are really strong links between New Zealand and Scotland. I mean, obviously you've touched upon kind of landscape similarities, but lots of other connections as well, which we may look to.
Yes, very much so. So down on the South Island, they actually have Dunedin, which is named after Edinburgh. I think it literally means something like town of Edinburgh.
Mm.
And yeah, there's a huge, especially down on the South Island, there's a huge Scottish connection. There are so many pipe bands here. It's wild. Like, I remember staying in a campsite one day and I was like, am I hallucinating or dreaming or on drugs? And I was like, I can hear bagpipes, like not just one, I can hear a lot. And there was the national bagpipe competition happening and it was incredible. Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
a lot of connections.
Yeah, the pipes have definitely traveled the world, and as
Mm.
we're seeing just now. So that, yeah. Um, Linda, give us a breakdown of Original Sins, if you
Sure,
would.
I'm just going to take this off because I know it can be really distracting. Okay, Original Sins is the main story is about a woman, a troubled adopted woman, who goes looking for her birth parents once her adoptive parents have both died. She has always had difficulty relating to other people. She finds it hard to maintain relationships. So she feels that there's a hole in her history. She doesn't understand why she is the way she is, and she hopes that finding her birth parents will help her to fill that hole. But when she does dig and eventually finds the information, she discovers some stuff that she really would have been better in some ways not knowing. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but it's not the main thrust of the novel. She discovers her father was banged up for serial killing in the 60s and is still alive. And she decides, or has to decide, whether she wants to contact him to see if she begins to think that maybe the way she is some kind of inheritance from him. The novel's set in two time scales. One is in the 60s, where we meet Mary and James. The main character is called Joanne. Mary and James are her mother and father, and we see them meet and see the initial part of their relationship. But the main part of the novel set in round about 2012 in Glasgow. And there's also a very strong connection to the island of Bute, because Joanne's family has a holiday home in Bute. And when she does discover that who her father is and that he's about to be released from long stay psychiatric criminal institution, she asks if she can be responsible for him. He's terminally ill, and she takes him to Bute. And the latter part of the novel is what happens when they're there. She doesn't realise that he might have a different agenda to her in terms of reconnecting with her.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned spoilers there, Linda. It's one of the things about talking to crime writers in particular that you're very wary of giving anything away. Francis, tell us all about A Bad, Bad Place.
A Bad Bad Place is set in Glasgow in 1979 in an area called Postle Park. And I think the best thing I can say about Postle Park is that it's notorious. It's everybody in Glasgow knows Postle Park, and a lot of the world know it as well. And 12-year-old Janie has discovered a corpse. She's discovered the corpse of a mutilated body while she's out walking her dog. She and her grandmother Maggie, it's a dual narrative between the two. They are dragged into the hunt for the killer. Janie claims that she can't really remember much about the day, about the morning when she found the body, but the police think she's hiding something, and they aren't the only ones interested. There's a lot of people want to find out what Janie knows. And although it's got a lot of conventions of crime, it's got twists and turns and red herrings and that kind of thing, a wee bit of blood and guts, if you like that kind of thing. But it's mainly about the relationship between these two women and the community that they live in, the way that violent crime reverberates, how the witnesses are affected, how the community is affected.
And before we move on, we have to mention your backdrop there, where you've not just got the book proudly in place, but you've also got the dog from the cover.
Okay, yeah, this is Sid Vicious, right?
Brilliant.
Sid Vicious is obviously the dog in the story, and I don't have my own pet, and I have adopted this cardboard dog. He's probably a lot easier to keep than a normal dog, And I do actually take them out in the bar. I do take them out in the bar.
Is it coming to Stirling?
Very attached to them.
Right now. That gets people to watch the video version of this, absolutely, so they can see exactly what Sid Vicious looks like.
Yeah, brilliant.
Kirsty, please, can you tell us about We Know What You Did?
Yes, so We Know What You Did is a suspense novel, and it's the story of a young woman from Glasgow, 19-year-old Odette Aiden. And when we first meet her, she's at a very pivotal point in her life. Her mum has just died. She doesn't really have any community around her. She doesn't have network. She doesn't have family. She doesn't have friends. And it's her kind of mission to go and find these things for herself that she's never had before. And she does achieve that in a way, in an unexpected friendship with an 80-something-year-old man, Amos. But it all goes horribly wrong because Amos is murdered during a notorious live stream that's watched by thousands of people across the world. And Odette is arrested on suspicion of his murder. From that moment on, she refuses to say another word. So it's a dual timeline novel. So in one timeline, we see the moment that Odette and Amos meet for the first time. We see how their friendship develops. And then in the other timeline, it starts at the moment of Odette's arrest. And then by the end, it kind of meets in the middle, and it's all centered on what happened during that live stream that saw Odette named as the most hated girl in Britain by the newspapers.
I don't know if you noticed, but when you mentioned murder on a live stream, most of us kind of leaned in and there was a couple of wows. That sounds incredible. Which actually brings me to my next question, which is what inspired you to tell these stories? They're your debut novels. So are these stories you'd wanted to tell for a while? Let's start with you, Kirsty, and we'll go back through in reverse order.
Yeah, I've realised that from speaking about this over the last couple of weeks that the way I approached this was maybe unusual, maybe some might say foolhardy. But basically, this book started off as a challenge I set to myself, which was just simply to get to the end of the first draft of a manuscript. Because my background's in writing, I used to be a political commentator and columnist. So I've always done writing in some capacity, but I've never managed to get to the end of a story before. Got to maybe like 30,000 words and then see a new shiny thing to be distracted by and abandon it. So it started off, the backdrop of it was that I'd recently lost one of my columns that I'd had for a long time. So I had a bit more free time on my hands. And I thought I'm going to use this time to just see if I can finally get to the end. And I did. And that very rough manuscript became my debut novel.
That is an interesting thing. This is open to all of you. That kind of perseverance, how important is that to you? Let's ask you, Zoe. Sorry. In terms of perseverance, Kirsty was talking about pushing through the 30,000 word barrier, which I think is quite a common type of thing. People get to a certain stage and then, have to kind of push on. Have you found that perseverance when it came to writing your novel was important?
Oh, very much so. So very recently, I've started to open up a bit more to people about my journey. Just because I know in particular, when people are starting out and they're trying to get through that door from the kind of being unpublished to being published, and it's a huge thing for so many writers. And I think what you do see is you see these what seem to be overnight successes. And oh wow, this person's got a debut novel and it's been nominated for this and that and that, and it's just incredible. And look what they did overnight. And I think I've been opening a little bit about it hasn't been an overnight story for me. So this is actually the fourth full-length manuscript that I have written.
Yeah.
And so of course, as you can imagine, along the way there's been a lot of rejection, a lot of heartache, and I think for me the options were either to stop because it was too hard, and that meant not writing anymore, and so that wasn't really an option. And so the other day I was just saying to someone, I was like, creating a good book, getting published is about 50% about creativity and writing, and then another 50% is just pure stubbornness.
Mhm.
And that's what's going to get you over the line. And I truly believe that, and think everybody who is a published author is someone who has been knocked down and kept getting back up. Whether it's because you only made it to 30,000 and you decide, no, I'm going to try again, or whether it's you've been rejected along the way, it's just dusting yourself off and keeping going. And I think that's what gets people published.
I will say that although a lot of writers may appear, or some writers may appear to be overnight successes, when you dig in, very few are overnight, and many have stories, I think, similar to yourself. So, Frances, to bring in two questions here that we've covered. First of all, what inspired A Bad Place? But also tell us a bit about that kind of balance between creativity and just damn hard work.
Yeah, well, I'm the opposite. I'm sort of like the accidental author. I had no plans. I've never written anything before. It was going back to uni that did it for me, you know, the mature student. This is hard to believe, but I was a mature student. And I was in Louise Welch's class for a creative writing course. And Louise just changed my life. You know, she was so kind, so inspirational. And she suggested that a short piece I had worked on would make a good novel. And that eventually became A Bad Place. And the initial inspiration was setting, that I wanted to set it in Postle Park where I grew up, just to show that there is another side of Postle Park, to show that there are good people, that Postle isn't the bad place. The bad place is the trauma inside people. But there is certainly that kind of, you have to keep going. With me, what I was battling against was huge sense that I was rubbish. That old imposter syndrome that sits on your shoulder and constantly tells you you're not good enough. And that was a huge battle for me. You know, I stopped a few times, and that is honestly one of the great things about prizes, because at one point I put the manuscript away in the metaphoric drawer, and it was the week that I won the Bloody Scotland Short Story Prize, and that just was a huge inspiration to get it back out, carry on, and that's why book prizes matter. It's a huge inspiration, not just for yourself, but for the whole writing community. And people will look at me and say, well, look, if she can do it, I'm going to have a pop at her, you know. So yeah.
But I mean, you said an accidental writer, you hadn't really meant to do it. But the idea, the fact of going to university when you did means that there must have been something in there that, you wanted to follow through on.
Yeah,
So
that was more sort of a case of like you reach that point where if you don't do something with your life, you feel that you're just going to grow old and knit and get a perm and yeah, I mean these things are coming and I can't wait. But the most exciting thing that was happening for me was getting my bus pass, so I had to do something.
and Linda, yourself, what was the inspiration behind Original Sins?
Probably a double inspiration. The first start was one of my very good friends adopted a little girl from Cambodia, and she tried very hard to find out something about her birth parents, but she employed a detective, but she couldn't find anything, no background about her at all. And we spent many nights quaffing wine and talking about what it might be like for this little girl to have no history at all, because both of us come from, we know our family history. I come from a big family, and my childhood was spent, listening to aunties and uncles and my granny and stuff talking about family stories. So I know a lot about my antecedents, if you like. And, people would point particularly to one of my aunties and say she's Ruby over the back, because I look like her. I was like her in personality. I used to think actually I was hers, and they just hadn't told me that. But anyway, that was one inspiration, thinking about what it would be like if you have no background, if you have nothing to explain to you why you're the way you are. The other inspiration was actually John Steinbeck's East of Eden, one of my favourite novels. And one of the things he's doing in it, it's not the main story, but one of the things he does in it is he's exploring, is there such a thing as just evil? Could someone just be born bad? I don't, if you don't know the novel, the character of Kathy is explored throughout. And I think Steinbeck probably comes to the decision that maybe, yes, you can just be born bad. I don't really believe that. I mean, I love the novel, but I don't really believe that story. And one of the things I was doing with Original Sins was exploring that. And I suppose it's a nature-nurture argument, you know, what makes you the way you are. So the two stories obviously link together. And in terms of writing it, yeah, I started mine on the MLit as well, but that's a long time before you were on it, Frances. You know, it's been on the go for 14 years now, and I got it to around about the 30,000 words, and then I did that thing, I put it away in a drawer. And I was doing other writings. I'm a screenwriter as well, and a playwright, and those things kind of took over for a long while. But I had one friend in particular who would always say, how's the book coming along? And I'd go, oh, well, you know, I haven't had time, you know, I mean, I will get back to it. And eventually, I think probably what kick-started me the next time was I got a book agent, and she gave me a deadline. And as a screenwriter and a playwright, you work to deadlines. You know, if you don't hit that, and you know this as well, Kirsty, as a journalist, you don't hit that deadline, you know, like you're. So she said, right, okay, here's it. So it was a kind of false deadline, but it made me do it. You know, it made me sit down, apply bum to chair, and actually just. And I don't know if you guys find this. I mean, it's so stupid. You really love writing, but it's really hard to make yourself do it. You know, it's like Mark Twain, I think it was, said, writing's dead easy. You just stare at a piece of paper until your forehead bleeds. You know? It does feel like that sometimes, you know. So yes, but once you do get your bum in the chair, if you're lucky, then it starts, you know, and once it starts, it's, you know, you can keep going. So that got me up to above 60. And then there was a last sprint actually it's around now about 82,000 words, I think, but the last 20 were easier than any of the rest of the book. Well, no, the first part of the book was easy, and then the middle part was hard, but you know.
It's interesting. I have spoken to many writers over the year who would say, I really don't like writing, or I find it so hard. And then when it gets to maybe the editing process, and you know, that's where they really enjoy it. But that initial, as you say, Linda, getting the bum on the seat and getting the words on the page or on the screen, you know, for a lot of people is hard work.
Yeah. And I mean, when it's working, it's brilliant. You know, I mean, like one of my friends has told me that when I'm writing, I tend to be, I'm like this in front of the screen, you know, all that sort of stuff. And when the story is working, and again, it'll sound a bit wanky, but you know, when the characters decide that what they're doing is the really exciting bit, I think, you know, and again, not every writer feels this, but sometimes they just go off and do. They just do stuff and you're not expecting them to, and that's like reading a story, you know. It's just they're telling it, you know?
Yeah, I
and
think
it's like that. It's great.
That's the fascinating aspect of it. I think that people who don't write find hard to believe. What do you mean you don't know what they're going to do? But that seems to be often the case. May, I'm really interested to hear the inspiration, first of all, behind your novel.
For a change, it's characters. I didn't start writing until about 12 years ago, and I'd written a short story about 3 childhood friends who were about 10 years old, and basically that was based in my childhood. A lot of the things that happen in the book, apart from the murders, obviously, were things that happened to me as a child. I was brought up in Airdrie. We basically were just sent out with a bottle of lemonade and a sandwich in the morning and ran wild for not the reasons that Ginny ends up doing that, but I just wanted to have the place in there. But then, because normally I write about places, I write books about Gozo, the little island off Malta, and this time I thought, no, I want to do characters. So I thought, what could a child do that would be absolutely horrendous? So that's where she kills somebody when she's 10, and I thought, well, that would do it. And actually I had to get my neighbour's 10-year-old daughter to pick up a galvanized bucket and swing it against a fence to see could a 10-year-old do this? You know, she didn't have a body at the end of it. It was only a fence.
I thought you were going to say I had to get my neighbour's daughter to kill somebody.
Nearly, not quite. But then I met this other writer. I'm in Moffat Writers Group, and she's called Sonia. And Sonia is even older than me, right? And she's been writing all her life, but she writes the most dark, scary stuff, right? But she's a tiny, little, frail-looking woman with a very soft voice, and you think, how could you be a killer? You could be a killer quite easily, because some of the things she writes about are horrendous. And I think, so I could have a character who doesn't look like your typical killer at all. So I have this older woman who is very delicate, very frail, and everybody thinks she can't possibly be a killer because she's so innocent and nice and gentle. So I wanted to have Ginny be that character. But she just took over. I mean, I don't know where it came from. You know how some people, you get plotters and pantsers. I'm an absolute pantser. But she would tell me things at 4 o'clock in the morning and wake me up and say, have I told you this bit? You know, I have to get up and go and write it down and do a whole chapter at some point in the middle of the night. And other things that I'd be writing that it's not a spoiler. One part in the book, Ginny is speaking to her father after her mother has died, and he tells her something that explains an awful lot about what she's like. I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know that was her background. It just suddenly came, and I thought, that explains why you're like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so the character of Ginny just really took over. And at first, she was horrible. There wasn't a redeeming feature in her and the first draft. And then when I get into doing the editing, I thought, I need to make her a wee bit likeable. Or the readers are just going to hate her, and that'll be it. It's not going to work. So I had to find some things that made her more, or that the readers would empathise with her more. And that's where Tom came in, because the story basically is about a bit about memory. What do you remember from your childhood, and how does your relationship with somebody change what you would absolutely believe about them? Because Tom can't believe that this woman's a killer, because he's been brought up with her. He knows what he's like, or what she's like, and he owes her an awful lot. So is there that little bit of false memory in there, and that is he deluding himself about what she's actually like? So in my case, it was all about characters. Do that. It's set partly in Airdrie, partly in Nairn, and again, I was brought up in Airdrie. I used to work in Nairn. I used to work in the Kelvin Grove Gallery in Glasgow. If you ever go in there and there's a little bit of rock that's got lichens painted on it, that's me. But so although the places and in the book are real, all of the characters are all made up, but everyone thinks that they're in it. Everybody that I know from Airdrie says, "Is that me?" I went, no. So,
you said something you said something very interesting there, May. You said you knew a writer who is a lovely lady, and she writes this dark things. And this is something I've spoken about before, and is that crime. Now, you all seem like very nice people, and crime writers tend to be, it's my experience, the nicest
Don't be fooled.
you will ever meet.
No, one of us is missing an eye.
Yes, I didn't want to ask her that, but no. But is that, well, the question I want to ask is, why crime fiction, if indeed you meant to write crime fiction in the first place? Frances, let's start with you. Was it always going to be a crime novel?
No, as I say, it wasn't even going to be a novel. It was Louise Welsh. I mean, she has this mantra that crime fiction is never just about the crime. It's all these different layers. I mean, anything you want to tackle with your writing, you can do via crime writing. You know, that the books that we studied on our course, there was books about gender, racism, class, poverty. I mean, anything that you would like to explore in your writing, you can do via crime. And all my favourite crime novels are layered like this. And I mean, a lot of people ask me why people like to read crime. It's not just a matter of writing it, but why people like to read crime. And I have no idea. I mean, I read crime as a kind of I like I like that sort of resolution at the end. The world's a bit grim, but there's always a good resolution at the end of crime, which I think for me that's why I like to read it. But as a writer, it's just that way that crime encompasses everything, and you can make some right stinking characters. You can make people really bad, and that's excellent to write. It's more, I think it's more difficult to write nice characters, but writing the baddies is great fun.
I
Yeah,
think,
true.
sorry,
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, like, I'm an actor as well, and playing the baddies is great fun. You know, everybody else wants to play the bad characters because they tend to have more depth to them, you know, if they're well written.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that, as shown by talking to all of you about your novels and doing this previously, is the kind of idea of what constitutes a crime novel has really shifted and broadened, and it's a very much a welcoming place, really diverse. Kirsty, did you always know that this was going to be a crime novel?
No, I didn't really have any plan going into it. So it started with Odette, and it was kind of that time, you know, in between sleep. So you're half awake, half asleep, and she kind of came to me, this idea of a young woman who really didn't have anyone in her life, um, who'd been dealt a pretty bad hand, but who was so earnestly optimistic with absolutely no reason to be, that type of person, a positive person who the world has given her no reason to be one. And from that point onwards, I was just thinking about, what situation can I put her in that would really upend her world. And that's the way it ended up. But it was interesting because when I was writing it, as I got further into the story, I was thinking I was writing a domestic thriller, that kind of thing. But when I got my agent, and she was getting ready to put it out to publishers, she said it was a book club upmarket suspense or something. So I mean, I don't think we really need to know too much about the genre categories as we're going. And obviously, you've got to you got to fit in there somewhere. But I think for me, that actually made it a lot easier, the writing of the first draft of that book. I flew through it because I had no idea what I was doing. I've never been to university. I've never done creative writing before. So I was kind of unrestricted in terms of, getting the words on the page. With the second one, I found progress was a lot slower because I was mindful of all the things that I've learned, throughout the editing process. But I do love reading crime. So I'm happy that's the genre I stumbled into.
I think Zoe, Kirsty makes an interesting point. Is it even worth considering genre when you're writing, or do you just tell the story you want to tell?
Um, it's quite interesting because there's been a few little debates online about whether my book should be crime fiction or whether it should be literary fiction. It kind of like bridges the gap. But I wanted to write a book that bridges the gap. Um, because I think one of the main inspirations for my book is, well, there's two. One is setting and one is people. And so I come from Scotland, grew up in Scotland, and I'm a very outdoorsy person. And so I spend a lot of time in the mountains. And in the mountains in Scotland, they're just bare and you can just see for miles. And then I
Mm,
moved to New Zealand and it's quite hard to capture how claustrophobic the New Zealand bush can be.
right.
So, I mean, if someone hasn't cut a path, you cannot go through it. It's it's impassable and it's this kind of like fine line between it beauty and feeling like free and just this amazing awe, and then also this sense of fear. And so I wanted to capture that in a book, which is going to lead itself towards kind of more, beautiful language and descriptions of setting. But I also wanted to be this kind of like beautiful, awe-inspiring place is also terrifying because you can so quickly get lost. And so the majority of my book is spent with a family who live off grid deep in the New Zealand bush. And so, yeah, I wanted to create a story that leaned heavily on language, leaned heavily on setting, leaned heavily on like the way that a reader would feel, but then also bringing in that kind of like quick page turnery tension of a thriller novel. Um, so yeah, I always knew that I kind of wanted to create a book that bridged that gap a little bit.
Something else that's coming through strongly is how important a good sense of place or a strong sense of place is. But May, did you always know that this was going to be a crime novel? I mean, from how you've described it, you knew the crime was happening.
Yeah, that's all it can be. There's 9 murders in it, so it can't be anything else. I didn't write crime at all. When I first started writing, it was just short stories about things, anything. There was nothing in the way of crime in them at all. But I moved across to Dumfries and Galloway in 2013 and joined a writing group there, and a lot of them were into crime. I've always read crime. That's my favourite genre for reading was crime, but I don't know why I never thought about writing it. And then we went with them to Crime and Publishment, which is a crime writing workshop weekend down in Gretna, run by Graham Smith, who's also a crime writer. And every time I came away from that, I had an idea for a book of some kind. So the first one, I came back from it in 2013, 2014, around about then. And I wrote a book in about 6 months. And it was a paranormal crime. At that time, that wasn't a thing. Nobody did cross-genre like that. And I got to the end, and then I thought, I'm sending it out to agents. It was absolute rubbish. there was no way this was ready to go anywhere near an agent. I didn't even edit it once. I just wrote it down straight away. But then I started to learn the craft of writing, and again, doing a bit of a study in from books and different podcasts and different things that were online. But also going every year to Crime and Publishment has been great, because every time I come back from it, I had another idea for a different book. So there's, I think there's 4 lying out there somewhere. But this is the first one that actually I took seriously. And it was finished in 2019. And then in 2020, I went back to work. I'm a health and safety consultant. And I went back to work on the COVID response with the local council. And couldn't write for a year after that. Couldn't touch the book. But then started putting it out eventually to publishers and whatever, and entered a competition. Won it, didn't know I'd won it. My friend had to send me an email saying, "Is there something you're not telling me?" And the prize was a publishing deal.
Oh, wow.
I'd forgotten I'd even entered this stupid thing into this. But it was always crime then. And it's the only thing I can think of writing now. I can't even think of anything else. There's no other stories in there because I just love the genre. I love how it all works. And I might get back to that paranormal crime one day, and because it's a bit more acceptable now, but it needs to be totally rewritten because it's you learn. It's a craft. I think there's a lot of people think they can write a book and that's it, without learning anything, without studying. But you don't. You can't just. It's not an innate thing that you have in your body. You need to learn how to do it. And all of these people who are doing their MAs and all the rest, I'd love to do that. So,
Linda, did you know Original Sins was going to be crime fiction, or do you even consider it crime fiction? You may not.
I don't know if I even do still. I think it's a sort of psychological family drama thriller type thing. But I think what's really good about crime fiction now is it is a really broad church. It encompasses everything. And a lot of it is, like I write about identity mostly, identity and belongingness. And this story started with Joanne's story about belongingness, and I didn't know that the others, like the James and Mary's story was going to link to. It was actually Zoë Rankin, Louise Welsh's partner, who was my tutor on the AIMLET, and she sort of said, these two are talking to each other, are they not? And that's what made me think,
wow.
So the sort of crime element, if you like, of it, the thriller element, was not there to start with. It was going to be a human drama, I think. But once I started to hook them together, it went along that way, and the two stories do eventually meet and clash, if you like. But yeah, I wasn't a crime reader until actually the book got nominated for the CWA, and I was like, oh, you know, I hadn't really thought of it as being in that crime camp. But since then, I've been reading crime, and now everything, my TBR pile is now all crime books because they're all so different, and I love it.
Yeah.
That it can encompass so many different stories. You've got, something with 9 murders in it, or something with like the crime happens before, like in yours, Francis, but it's still really thrilling because you have no idea what's going to happen. It's really, as you get to the end of yours, you're like, what's going to happen? And I think that's the exciting bit about crime. There's nearly always an element of, it's really propulsive. It drives towards the end, and it keeps you absolutely, enthralled as you get through the book, which is brilliant. I love it.
And Francis, you mentioned that you felt that prizes and awards were really important, and I want to open that out to everyone else because I think that's interesting. How do you view being shortlisted for a prize such as this? May, let's start with you.
I'm absolutely shocked. I think it's amazing. I've been going to Bloody Scotland for years. I did the Pitch Perfect. Just being there as a reader and meeting other people, I've loved every bit of it. But to be nominated for this or accepted in the shortlist, I just can't believe it. I don't think it's happening really. And I'm definitely got this imposter syndrome. I'm reading all these other women's books, and they're fabulous. What's mine doing in there with them? I just think it's a thing that it's great that you have them. I think it's something that really will help authors because getting seen out there is very, very difficult now.
Yeah.
And being shortlisted really has boosted everything about podcasts and questions and answers and events here, there, and everywhere. I think it really has helped. And it's so important that we have these kind of things, I think.
And
Yeah.
Kirsty, you come from a background where in journalism there's also awards and prizes and all those kind of things. Do you feel they are important?
Yeah, they are. Saying that, I didn't win any of them, Alistair, but yeah, they are. I mean, I think it gives you such a boost. Writing is a very solitary thing, and you're squirreled away in your living room or in your bedroom, or your study if you're fancy, and you're working on this thing for such a long period of time without really getting any feedback on it. In those initial early stages, and then when it comes to the point where you're putting it out into the world, for public consumption or for the views of professionals in the industry, it's very nerve-wracking. So to get any kind of recognition is just so lovely. It's not sunk in for me yet either. I was so excited when I got the news, and then when I saw it was an all-women shortlist, I could have jumped for joy because it's a ready-made, peer network we've got here. I didn't know any authors or anybody in the industry, and I just feel so lucky to be shortlisted alongside these amazing women and their amazing books. And I think it'll make us enjoy it more as well. The fact that we're all in this together, and it's just wonderful.
And sorry, May.
We're a little team, and we're going to karaoke at the Coup on the Saturday night.
I've forgotten that.
None of us can sing. It doesn't matter.
It's interesting. I've spoken to the shortlisted writers a number of times over the years. I think this is maybe my 4th time doing it. And very quickly, there's a sense of camaraderie, a real sense. It's a prize. So you think, well, there's a competition here, but it never seems like that. There's just like, you know what, we're all in this together. And it's a lovely thing, I think, definitely. And I think you're right, Kirsty, particularly being an all-women shortlist, which is still incredibly rare. It gives another dimension to it, definitely. So what's your feelings on prizes in general, but also being shortlisted for this one?
Yeah, so I think imposter syndrome is it's such a big thing for so many writers. And so my book came out in September last year, and it came out in New Zealand and Australia, and then it came out in America, and then it came out in the UK, and it was listed as one of the New York Times best thrillers of the year, and all these amazing things happened. But I never once had a glass of champagne because I just felt so like this doesn't feel right. Like I'm so scared it could just all go away. And then when this announcement came out for the Bloody Scotland, I don't think I'll ever forget it. I was in the kitchen in my house and I was making venison sausages for my kids and my husband. I should say I'm not a very good cook. He usually cooks, so it wasn't a good thing from the start. But and so I'm doing all this in the kitchen, and then I get this message, and it's like, you've been shortlisted for Bloody Scotland, and um I miss Scotland so much. I love New Zealand, but I miss it so much. And I was kind of in a bit of shock. And so that was the first downfall for the sausages, really. And then half an hour later, I got a message saying you've been shortlisted for the CWA Awards. And so I'm just like in shock in my kitchen, just no dinner is being made at all. And then 5 minutes later, my dad, who lives in Scotland, sent me the front page of the Scottish Herald where it had all our names on it for being a Scottish female shortlist. And I was just like, I just put everything down. I'm shaking. My two kids are like 3 and 6. Are like, what is wrong with mom? And I just walked through to the back garage and I brought through a champagne and I was like, we're having champagne and burnt sausages for dinner because I'm shaking so like I think it's just, and then these incredible women right now have just like wrapped themselves around me from the other side of the globe, just because everyone is so thrilled to be in this all-woman shortlist. And yeah, so it was the first time that night that I felt I'm going to celebrate the win of publishing a book. So yeah, it really did mean a huge amount to me.
And Linda, you said originally you weren't sure it was a crime novel, you thought of it in a different way. But what does it mean to be shortlisted for a crime prize, or just any kind of prize, really, to be shortlisted in recognition and also to be on an all-female shortlist?
That's the icing on the cake. I mean, like the lassies have already said it, really. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, look, Bloody Scotland is, it's one of the top festivals in the UK for crime writing. So to be nominated for this is just like beyond. Now, I was just gobsmacked to get the phone call from Stephen the day they let him know. I was standing in a car park at Lidl, actually, and I let out a whoop, and the person walking past me just sort of went, because whatever it was, I'd
So
just been, it was
lovely.
obviously really good. It's, I mean, prizes, obviously it's amazing to get them, but I think, as you said, May, it kind of like says, yeah, okay, you're on the way to it. Like someone said, yes, you can. It's about that imposters thing. Something outside of you has said, yeah, this is good. This is a good thing that you've done. And as I've already sort of said, I'm a screenwriter, a playwright, and an actor, and those things are ephemeral. Like a play one night when it's performed is just that one night. It's just that experience. It can never be repeated. You can't go back and do it again. With a book in your hand, it's different. That's an actual thing that you made, and to have someone else say this is a good thing that you made is a really brilliant thing. It's hard to explain. I mean, look, prizes for playwriting or screenwriting again are different. I don't know why, they just are.
I think that's
So
really
yes, this is
interesting, Linda, for you to talk about imposter syndrome when you've been writing and working in the arts for years, but still having that feeling when it came to the novel.
Yes, and I think I would be suspicious of anyone who almost doesn't have it. Any creative artist who doesn't have that, because even though you might have confidence in what you're doing at the time, it's you always think you're going to get found out. Someone's going to go, aha, all this time, like we knew you were shit.
Frances, am I right in saying you were in a supermarket when you found out as well?
Oh yeah, that's the wonky carrot story. Little features a lot in this.
You nearly made me spit my coffee there, Frances.
It was actually the day I found out that I'd been signed, that I got signed with Penguin and big money and everything. My husband and I were in Lidl looking at the wonky carrots because that was what we could afford, the wonky carrots. And I got this email saying that, yeah, you're getting this amazing deal. and I was, oh God, let's get the good carrots. Let's dump these wonky carrots.
Asparagus.
Let's go for the good ones. And he's right up to Waitrose. You know, it's these things are life changing. And the award is the same. It's absolutely changed my life. Meeting these women have changed my life in the best kind of way. And I think awards are not just for the writers, but for the readers too.
Yeah.
When you can't afford a lot of books and a book has shortlisted for something on it, it's a great way of deciding, well, I can only afford one book this week, or I can go to the library and order a book. And having a shortlist means that other people like it. It's been judged, you know, so it's a great thing for readers as well as writers. But just being part of this wee group's the best thing for me, man. It's amazing. Amazing.
And it's so interesting. You know, a couple of you have said you've done writing courses and others, you know, writers groups and things like that. And someone once said to me, you know, it's important to kind of find your own group, if you like, find your own gang, for want of a better thing. And it sounds that's kind of what's happening here, that you've you know, are doing that and supporting, and probably going forward, you've got, you know, advice at hand.
I think being through the same thing, you know, like bonds you anyway. But yeah, we've got a little WhatsApp group, and Zoe hooks in every night around about 9ish. We know she'll be there. It's like obviously
The gang
7
of
a.m.
murderesses.
Yeah. With a sausage and a glass of champagne. It's
Absolutely. That's it.
That's how I live, you know. That's my life now.
I'd like to finish up with maybe a piece of advice, because there'll be people listening who want to write a novel, but also, you know, maybe are at the stage where they've got one that's sitting there that they would like to get to in front of a publisher or whatever it may be. Do you have advice for anyone in that situation? Frances, let's start with yourself.
I think a lot is to do with finding support. It's a great way of conquering that imposter syndrome, that feeling that you're not good enough. Get a week, even if it's just a little free writing group in the library. It doesn't have to be education, doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be a WhatsApp group, but get people around you who say, do it. And that helps immensely. That really does.
May, what would you have some advice for people listening?
Exactly the same. I wouldn't have been a writer if it wasn't for the group of mostly women, actually. We're the Twisted Sisters, we're called. And we all support each other in our writing. We do beta reading. We maybe give some ideas when you get a bit stuck when you're in the middle of writing. They all come to my house, and we have weekends where we do nothing but write from like 9 till 6, and then we get drunk afterwards. But the daytime is all about writing, and having that kind of support there is really good, because I've got a friend who she's a fantasy writer, and she has no groups. She's got nobody to help her to do that kind of thing. And just having somebody out there that look at your book and go, right, you need to build that up a little bit, or yeah, that's good, you've got a great idea here, or that's a load of rubbish, so let's go back and start that again. Sometimes. But having people that you can trust to tell you the right things. You can give your family your book to read, and they'll go either it's a load of rubbish or it's absolutely brilliant. And you know it's not either of those extremes.
Yeah.
So if you have other writers there with you, and the crime writing fraternity is just so supportive. Every single one of them. There's not a person that I've met within other group, either at events or at panels or whatever, who's not there to help everybody else and to support each other. It's great.
I would agree with you, absolutely. Kirsty, what about yourself? Do you have any advice perhaps on the initial getting published as well?
I would say don't be scared of a rubbish first draft. Don't judge that Word document that you've got the first time you write your draft against books that are on the shelves, because as we all know, as you go through the publishing process, you go through many rounds of edits. There's lots of time to improve it, to make it better, but that stage is to get that first draft done. So don't be scared of the first draft would be my advice.
Okay. And Zoe, what about yourself?
So I guess I'm a wee bit different to a lot of people in this group in that I absolutely love having writing friends so much, and I feel that they're such a good support. But nobody sees a word of my book until it goes to my agent.
Yeah.
So I'm a very yeah, I write in my own space, but I have the friends for the just the chats and the support. So I suppose for me, in terms of writing advice, I think for if you're writing your first novel, that can seem like a lot of pages. Like, how do I write something this big? And a lot of people get caught up in the planning and the, multi-page documents of every chapter. And I'm a complete pantster. I don't plan a thing. And so I kind of think of a book as like a staircase, and not knowing what at the top is much more exciting. And also, you only have to get up, crawl, like drag yourself up one step at a time. Like, you really don't have to think beyond the step that you're currently on. And just trust that if you build one step at a time, at some point you'll see the top. And I think that's how I write. And so it's not so scary thinking of the whole thing at once.
Now, yourself and May used the term pantster, and I think I know what it means, but just maybe explain exactly what it means to listeners.
Yeah, so it just kind of means you fly by the seat of
Yeah.
your pants when you're writing. So rather than planning, you are just going in blind each time you arrive at your computer, and you're just kind of waiting to see what happens for you, whether it's there at the computer or whether it's, as May says, in the middle of the night, a little hello. And yeah, so it's just having no expectations about where the scene is necessarily going to end when you start it.
I don't even do the scenes in order. I'll maybe start at the beginning.
Now,
But
you just be crazy.
Oh, absolutely. I'm absolutely mad the way I write. I've found the joys of Scrivener, because you can move things about in Scrivener and put them in the right places.
See, that just stresses me out. I'm a technological dinosaur. Like, I am Word through and through. Like, yeah.
And Linda, first of all, are you a pantster or a planner?
I think I'm a bit of both. Certainly, I start as a pantser because, again, from an acting background, I start that characters talk to me. Character says something, and I'm kind of just writing it down.
You love
So
in this
that's where,
profession that people can talk to you in your head and you listen
yes,
to these voices, and it's
yes,
so loud and it's encouraged.
Yeah, and you don't
Like,
get
it's
yeah,
great.
locked up.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah,
you
no
don't get
one,
locked up.
yes, people sort of go, oh, right,
Great,
yeah.
great.
So certainly starting, and with this one anyway, I started, I was just like you, May, I was writing bits here, there, and everywhere. But eventually, the playwriting, screenwriting, structuring like kicks in. And I would eventually, when I was getting further, when I got into the latter stages of the book, certainly in the middle, I was writing out what I had already to see what bits I still had to write. And when sitting down to write them, I would just let it go. But I knew I had to get Joanne from here to here, say, and I had to write that bit. So a combination of both of them for me. But advice, I think, for writers, I certainly started with like you, May, with writing groups. And for people, sometimes if you're remote, it's hard to find like a writing. I mean, I live in a city. There are writing groups everywhere that I can hook into. But I started with an OU course, just creative writing, and we had an online group all over the country. Now, there were hundreds and hundreds of people on that course, but we gradually coalesced into a smaller group, which was a bit more local. It was Scottish. And we spent time online sending things to each other. And that's where I learned to crit, actually. And I think it's really important as a writer. Right? And I know, so you're not doing this, but critting someone else's work teaches you so much about your own writing, because it makes you think about what works and what doesn't, and you can take that back to your own page. But I've also got I'm looking up at the door that sits beside my writing desk, and up on the top of it I've got two quotes, and one is writing is rewriting, and that's back to what you were saying, Kirsty. Don't be afraid of the first draft, get it down. And the other one is, don't get it right, get it writ. And it's just like, get it on the page, and then you can do something with it.
Bums and seats.
Bums on seats, words on paper or on screen, whatever, get it down.
And as we move towards this year's Bloody Scotland Festival, well, first of all, Zoe, are you going to be in attendance?
I am. I'm in 2 panels, so very exciting. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I want to ask all of you, just what are you looking forward to about it? Zoe, let's start with you since you're
Oh my
going.
gosh, like I cannot explain the excitement of coming to Bloody Scotland. So, Bloody Scotland went online during COVID,
Yeah.
and I also had a newborn in COVID lockdown, and I was also very ill. So I would lie on the sofa with my baby and just binge Bloody Scotland, and it was the best thing. And so to be invited, it's just, oh my gosh, just the vibe. I can't wait to be around like Scottish readers, Scottish writers, just to kind of like, yeah, just the vibe, I think, is the thing I'm most excited about, and to meet people in the flesh
Yeah, absolutely.
rather than online. Yeah.
Kirsty, I'm presuming everyone, sorry, as I said to Zoe, is everyone going to be there? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So, Kirsty, what are you looking forward to about it?
So because we're all going to be there, the thing I'm most looking forward to is obviously meeting in person, but more importantly, getting all these ladies up on the stage for karaoke. Because I know there's some reluctance looking at you, Frances, but even being like a metal triangle, anything, I think it would just be very cool to have us all up there. So I'm working on it.
Excellent.
But now until September to convince Frances.
Yeah, it'll work. We'll do it.
Absolutely. Frances, surely a Stiff Little Fingers cover version, something like that.
The dog is your support
really.
dog.
They will absolutely send me home if I get up on stage and sing. You know that I will be out of everything, cancelled across the country. It's just it's not happening.
Frances, what are you looking forward to then if it's not karaoke?
I mean, there's so many amazing panels. Louise Welch is on a panel. It's called Desert Island Crooks, where a few writers choose what they would take as sort of like Desert Island discs, but for writers, and I can't wait for that. That looks amazing.
Yeah.
And I love the Pitch Perfect. I love people pitching their ideas. I always watch that online. So I'm really keen to see the newbies. It's just so exciting, and you kind of think, can I steal that idea? You know, you're always on the lookout for ideas, and I think being with other writers, that's what you get. You get all this inspiration, and obviously all this friendship. It will be a great year, really great.
Linda, yourself, what are you looking forward to at Bloody
Oh, let me look at this. Like, don't know if you can see all the little crosses in the programme down here.
Yes,
I was
yes,
like,
you've marked your programme.
And one of them I wanted to do, I realised I couldn't do because my panel's the same time, but you know, I'll watch it later. But oh yeah, hanging out with these queens, I think we're going to have a really, really good time. I'm really looking forward to the first night, the procession and the thing in the church sounds really brilliant fun. But yeah, just the whole blast of it, I think will be absolutely amazing. I can't wait. It'll be so much fun. And to see Zoe in the flesh will be really great, to be able to give you a cuddle. Yeah, be
I'm
great.
excited.
And May, yourself, what are you looking forward to?
I've been going to Bloody Scotland for years, back to even the days when we had torchlight processions all the way down the town, which were fabulous. And being a health and safety person, there's no reason why we still can't have them, by the way.
I was going to ask you that, actually.
Yeah.
So
we not have like safe
I can do the
torches?
risk assessment for you, and we can go ahead with the torchlight procession. We'll sit there with lighters on the stage.
Yeah.
That'll be it.
Heartbroken that they aren't like going to have one, having watched them online.
They have there is a procession now, but there's no torches, no flaming torches anymore.
Let's just take electric torches anyway. We won't tell them. We'll just light them up.
That's it. We're a good fan. I think I'm actually quite a shy person, and the fact that being there as an author, I'll be able to go up to Sean Cosby and speak to him. I'm really looking forward to that. He's my favourite writer at the moment. Every single
I
word.
got to meet him in Auckland a couple months ago.
Did you? Oh,
and I just fell in love with him. He's amazing.
That's it. But there's so many other ones there as well. And being a part of that and being a part of the whole thing is just mind-blowing. I just absolutely love the idea.
Well, the special things I think about Bloody Scotland is exactly that writers and readers get to mingle As in very rare in other festivals, you won't go to Edinburgh and find that same kind of situation. To pick just one example, and Bloody Scotland really has that kind of lovely connection between readers and writers, and you know, some of you have been readers and still are readers and are now writers, so it's got that lovely thing. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, and all the very best with the books, with the festival, and everything else. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Well,
It's been
thank you.
lovely.